I'm going to call in Farley at the end.
Call in Farley at the end. At the end of this little song.
Where are you living now? Which province?
Cape Breton and Ontario.
Cape Breton is Nova Scotia.
Suzanne, could you go out?
Where is it? Where is it? New Brunswick?
Thank you.
I don't know. Good morning. My mother told me there would be mornings like this. I have a dreadful task ahead of me. I have to interview an aggressive man from Cape Breton who writes books by the yard. And as he came into the studio this morning, he said, "Webster, do explain to me the low level of political life in British Columbia." Because he said, "From whence I come, everything is always above board and easily understandable." And at the same time, just before I came on the program, I got a phone call from an irate NDPer who says, "Webster, you're a gutless fink. Webster, you haven't castigated the social credit government for their appalling behaviour in the dirty tricks matter." And I said to him, "Sir, with all due deference and respect, neither has your leader, wee Davy Barrett." "Oh," he said, "wee Davy Barrett doesn't want to get involved in those dirty kind of things." And I said, think for a moment. If wee Davy Barrett is to be as the next Premier, and of that he's fully confident, the epitome of all that's good and ethical and proper and decent, he should be leading his mass of support in British Columbia by telling them in detail what is wrong with Premier Bennett's inept, my word, actions. Inept is a very weak way to describe the incredible kerfuffle that social credit now is in. And I can't help but have a very wide admiration for this stubborn little 26-year-old girl, Ellen Mackay, who just won't go away. And Bennett's embarrassed, and Kempf is embarrassed, and Musalem is double-talkingly embarrassed. And who else is embarrassed? Everyone. Williams is embarrassed, McGeer is embarrassed, Van der Sar can't be embarrassed, he never would be embarrassed. But those with sensitivity are embarrassed. And for the benefit of my friend from Ontario, let me tell him what dirty tricks are in British Columbia. First of all, you have a political party. Then you have a government caucus. And the government caucus is paid by public funds. And there's no doubt about it that dumb Jack Kelly, paid by our money, set a standard of ethics slightly lower than the low. Because he advised, without any of the press picking it up for months and months and months, that the way to beat the NDP was to write phony letters to the editors. It was finally exposed. Kelly was dumped. He ran away, dumped. Another little girl, Ellen Mackay, works in the same office. And Kempf, the caucus chairman, Jack Kempf, was going to, obviously they were going to dump her. But when they realized she won't go, they said, would she take a reprimand? And she said, "I certainly will not take a reprimand, Ellen Mackay." And she goes into the social credit office every day, sits there, clipping papers, opening letters, a living reminder of the botch up with this pathetic two-bit scandal in which social credit is now totally involved. To my friend from Cape Breton, let me say, can you imagine a political party in British Columbia? We all know that they contain elements of expediency and a touch of venality and this and that. Can you imagine a political party that has to, at its convention, arrange to set up a committee on ethics of their employees? When you've got to set up a committee on ethics, you're surely lacking in principle to begin with. There is only one ethic involved in running campaigns or running a political party. Thou shalt not be caught. But beyond being caught, and taking away my sardonicism in this gentle approach I'm taking this morning, if you're a good politician, you want to run a clean party, thou shalt not mislead the public nor manipulate the media with phony letters to the editor or God knows what else. Thou shalt be honest. And if thou shalt not be honest, thou wilt be fired out the bleeding door instantly. That, of course, was Bennett's big boo-boo. Dirty trick 6 weeks ago. The press finally exposed the fact of the 179 tapes, the phony letters, the techniques of the little lie, because that's what it is. And instead of going chop, 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 and cleaning out the whole houseful and taking any lawsuits that may follow for wrongful dismissal or whatever, the Premier equivocated, and so did everybody else equivocate. And so Barrett and the RCMP, this is the end. The RCMP, in the naive, if proper effort of Bennett to clear the whole thing, calls in the RCMP to investigate forgeries. Let me ask Mr. Bennett, what happens if somebody is charged and convicted of forgery? As maybe they should be. But this, instead of being a pathetic two-bit scandal, will go down in history as the way social credit ran elections. As I say, I admire Ellen Mackay. She just won't go away. They're going to have to pay her off with public funds by order in council. Your money and mine. Perhaps properly so. And what does Davy Barrett do? Remember wee Davy used to jump all over the province, fighting and snarling and kicking and whatnot? He now goes to the Men's Canadian Club in his sober suit and some of his tummy off, and gets a standing ovation from the Men's Canadian Club. And meanwhile, strategically, very cleverly, he keeps his mouth shut. Sure in the knowledge that social credit, if it continues like this, and if the dirty tricks caper lasts with Ellen Mackay sitting there till the next election, that social credit will surely self-destruct. It is not a pathetic two-bit scandal. That's the way I would look at it on a short-term basis had it been cleaned out. But a political party that can't get this monster off its heel, and who knows how high it goes. We've had all kinds of executive assistants involved, all kinds of executive assistants who've moved on, who are close to cabinet ministers. And nothing has been resolved except a dirty stain on, can you call social credit free enterprise? I'm not quite sure. I think really they're a bunch of populists, which is all very well. And there's one of the reasons, by the way, just to meander, that the Men's Canadian Club applauded Barrett the other day. Because what has social credit done for free enterprise? Not terribly much. They might find it, instead of dealing with an inept, meandering prime minister, easier to deal with the devil they know than the devil they don't. So once again, Mr. Bennett's performance in the last couple of days on the Open Line show, he makes it quite clear to suspicious people like myself that he's going to have a cabinet shuffle involved in the lack of handling of the dirty tricks business or the improper setup of that organization. And I immediately think, Gracie's going to get the chop. Gets back to Victoria. No such thing was ever intended. Well, Mr. Premier, you certainly could have fooled me. You've been talking about cabinet shuffles for God knows how long. You've already reduced Van der Zalm to a kind of quavering jelly on the sidelines. I'm sure Gracie's confidence is shattered. I haven't spoken to her about it. She would tell me, no, certainly not. Everything's wonderful in the party. But I think this is a total botch-up which deserves the greatest examination. And I think we should give a round of applause to Ellen Mackay for being the continuing won't-go-away sore which keeps this matter alive if and until Bennett finally deals with the matter in a commanding and decisive manner. Probably didn't make much sense to my old friend from Ontario, and he is old, he's 58, and he looks it. And put the camera on the little man. It's Farley Mowat. Hardly know it. And no birds sang. After the break.
Steal your cigarettes.
I'm not smoking on here.
He doesn't smoke on here.
You don't, eh?
He never smokes.
Give me another cigarette. It's
Well,
just that
I'll stick to this then.
I've got polyps in my thingamajig and I've got to get them off.
And no birds sing.
And when I drink, I
And
talk
no
too much. I
birds
have a very
sang.
funny
Here you are.
Frank Sinatra type voice.
So you figure by not smoking during the
And
brief time
no
you're on air, you'll
birds
save your
sing.
polyps. That.
Where's the book?
I'm showing it to them because they...
As you may well have guessed, I have a business on the side. I sell books. And one of the dangers of selling books that you sometimes have a bright author with a dull book and they think he's terrific on the air and they buy the book and it's a disaster. Or you'll have a dull author and a bright book. Dull author and a bright book. I will say in defense of my author friend this morning that he writes bright books and that he's a bright, aggressive, somewhat obnoxious person. Farley, nice to see you.
Jack, I hardly know what to do with such a glowing recommendation to your audience. Actually, I'm not nearly as bright this morning as I ought to be because this is one of my periodic visits to the great swinger city of the West where all the high rollers gather. And they put me in a hotel suite last night and they were really going to lay it to me. So they gave me one of these triple layer suites with a bed that floats in midair surrounded by miles and miles of hangings. And it was very impressive. Except that they also put a progressive, no, not progressive conservative, a social credit convention in the hall on my right and a disco right over the ceiling. So the only way I could stay awake last night, stay awake, the only way I could get any sleep at all was to drink a lot of coffee with a lot of things in it. So I may not be quite as bright this morning as you would like me to be, but I'll try.
You tried to paint a picture of 58-year-old Farley Mowat as some tough, elderly, hard-drinking, not Rui.
No,
Well, I don't know.
but not because of lack of will.
No. But in fact, you're a nice, gentle old man going down the road of life, successfully happy, and writing emotional stories now about the war.
The next thing, you're going to call me one of Canada's beloved elder authors. And I'll kick you if you do.
I would say that you are the Gordon Sinclair of the writing business.
Oh, my God, I'll never live that one down.
A provocateur of the worst order.
All right, I'll accept that.
You'll accept that, won't you? And it's true.
I'll accept it only so we can get on and talk about what's important.
What's
My
important?
book.
No. I was going to go back and talk about your other books, but I will talk about this book. You wrote a book about the regiment before, and that was your regiment.
Right.
The Hastings and Peas.
Hastings and Prince Edward, otherwise known as the Hasty Peas.
The Hasty Peas. Is that an acceptable name to use on public television
Oh,
at
yes,
the time in the morning?
yes, because you spell it P-E-A-S.
I see, the Hasty Peas.
It has a sort of a gardening connotation.
And that was a dispassionate book about the regiment.
It was a history, a real history, not an academic history, of a regiment in action in the Second World War. And I was in it, as you know, but kept to myself with tremendous difficulty out of the book entirely.
So it finally had to explode.
It did. I think what happened was that having written that book and having kept myself out of it, my ego was so suppressed that it just had to bubble away over these many years until finally it exploded in this.
Pierre Berton tells me it's a good book.
Well, coming from Pierre, that's very nice. But you know, Pierre is concerned with heritage things now, and if he's including this as part of his heritage concept.
I have read only the extracts that were in the Weekend magazine, I think it was.
Well, that's more than most reviewers.
I haven't had the time to read the book. But surely it must be difficult to go back now to Ortona, 1942, am I correct? And recreate... 42?
43.
43. And recreate the panic, the fear, the emotion, the tribulation, and the trials. But you do it so magnificently. I can't remember what people said to me yesterday, far less what people said to me 50 years ago.
Well, Jack, would you believe that I don't remember it either? I have a very, very poor memory, conscious memory. What I did was I simply opened the floodgates of my subconscious memory. And the fears, the agonies, the terrible distresses which had been suppressed for so long just came pouring out. It wasn't a conscious act. In fact, this book was not intended to be a book about my war experiences. It was intended to be part of my ongoing autobiography. But like most of my books, it took command halfway through and became a different kind of book.
I don't suppose I'll ever write a book, but I certainly must know from you and learn at once. How come you managed to release your subconscious and go back to the vivid realities when you were a bright, young guy with a rifle and bayonet?
Because I'm a primitive. And primitives don't have much conscious mind. They operate on a subconscious level. I'm a throwback. I'm an atavistic, prehistoric type. And it's automatic with me.
You mean to say that you can get into a certain state of, what would you call it, detachment,
Yeah.
soma?
It's a kind of trance. I sit and stare at my black typewriter, trying consciously to write things, and I write nothing but junk. And I look at it, and I'm appalled. But if I sit there and look at it long enough, a little door in the back of the head seems to open, and things start to happen, and I become quite unaware of what I'm writing.
Yeah, it sounds not unlike Farley Mowat in the good old days when he was on the prod with a couple of drinks. Wham, you're away. Would drink help you to release the subconscious?
No way, no way. I cannot drink. I can't even touch God's heavenly brew.
Coffee.
Coffee. When I'm writing.
Take
Which
me
is
back.
why I hate writing. It's why I write so little these days, because one should enjoy one's pleasures, and writing for me is not a pleasure.
Oh, come on.
It isn't, no. No, it's a hideous ordeal. I really loathe it.
I've interviewed you at least a dozen times on a dozen books in the past dozen years.
And I've always said the same thing. I hate writing. And what's more, when I hear a writer say, oh my God, I love it, it moves me, it makes me feel alive, nothing I want except to sit in front of my typewriter and pound out deathless prose, I say, you liar. I don't believe any writer enjoys writing.
Tell me about the book. Talk about the war.
Okay.
Yeah. Which war? Second World War.
Boer War.
No.
This is my experience as the Boer War.
How old were you when you joined the army?
18. 18 when I tried to join.
And you, in one of the book review things, it gives a piece of deathless, phony conversation that your father said to you. You ever see this?
I never read these things.
I didn't know your father.
No.
You did know your father.
Very well indeed.
That's always handy.
Mind you, assuming he was my father, he always claimed he was, but there's no evidence of this.
You're willing to accept it.
I accepted it on faith,
How tall was he?
yeah. He was a little a little smaller than I was.
I'll save this quote for And No Bird Sang, which is a very sensitive book. Kind of thing I don't really like to read.
Well, a lot of people said that already, that it is not the kind of book they expected from me. Some people picked it up and thought it was a textbook on how to teach your canary how to sing, and they felt relaxed. Others thought it was an ecological treatise because of the title. But people who began to read it quite often discovered, a lot of them have discovered so far, that it distressed them so much that they would put it aside.
I'm going to save this quote from your father. He must have been a very strange, formal man, until after the break. Farley Mowat.
God bless him, yeah.
No bird sang.
No bird.
Hello, Naomi. Where are you? Come on over where I can see you.
I knew your father because
Did
he
you?
rented a couple
Jesus
of
Christ, you look great.
Toronto at the time before I moved here. Get up every morning. Garden.
Always chatter. Bloody chatter, yeah.
Have you got coffee? Sit over there. What's happening?
He was a act of father, I tell you.
Sit up in the red chair, love. Sit up in the red chair. This is Naomi. She and I were reporters together 50 years ago.
Lovely. I love that. We have a picture.
Are you still married to the youngish man?
No, he got away.
Oh, God damn it. That's bad news.
Don't give up hope.
Oh, I never give up. I belt him in the end.
Naomi Lang is an old colleague of mine from the Sun, Farley Mowat.
30.
That's you, Farley?
Jack was me.
The young and the old.
Actually, if I shaved, I'd look
There
exactly
we are.
like that today.
Go back again to that one, will you? Go back again to that one. Let's, from the old to the young. The same eyes, the same kind of somewhat prissy mouth.
Oh,
no
prissy.
moustache, no beard. Back to the new.
Yeah. Which do you prefer? Now, I know you're heterosexual, so that I'm not asking you for a date or anything, but which do you prefer?
Young fella.
Ah, yeah.
You look clean and decent and unspoiled.
That's before the corruption of the world had got into my soul.
On the 2nd day of September 1939, Farley Mowat was painting the porch of the family's clapboard house in the rural Ontario town of Richmond Hill when his ebullient father, sounds like David Barrett, obviously exhilarated, pulled into the driveway in his convertible. Wealthy family. Farley, my lad, said the old fellow to the boy, there's bloody big news. The war is on. Nothing official yet, but the regiment's been ordered to mobilize. And if you keep your nose clean and work like hell, there'll be the King's Commission. Sounds like something from upstairs downstairs.
It was in those days. That's how people thought. You wouldn't remember that. You were too young. But that's how people thought in those days. And I was raised in a society where young men thought about war in the way the people who, G.A. Henty wrote those boys' books.
Fixed bayonets.
Fixed bayonets and dashing across the veldt, chasing the Boers and so on.
With rifle and revolver up the Amazon.
That's right. We still had the Sir Galahad complex in those days. We were creatures of illusion, almost totally. And when the
Were you
war...
living in the same world?
Well, you were living in Glasgow. That's a little
That's
different.
right.
Yeah. And there you had a much better hold on reality than we did over here.
It would seem.
It would seem it was true.
Never thought of you coming from a protected, wealthy, upper class.
Not wealthy. Oh, no. By no means. No. My father was a librarian, and there were no wealthy librarians in those days. I won't tell you how he got that convertible. That's a long story. But he'd been in the First World War and had been badly injured, almost lost his arm, and was crippled forever after. But he remained a peculiar kind of militarist. He didn't declaim the virtues of war, but he was wedded to the memory of his regiment. And he was a militiaman all through the interim. And it was absolutely axiomatic in his mind that I would have to follow in his footsteps.
I suppose.
Now, I tried to escape it. You know, I was going to enlist, fine. I had this great enthusiasm, as all the young fellows did around me then. And I rushed down. I wanted to be a pilot. I wanted to fly.
You were 18 at the time?
Yeah. And I rushed down to the nearest Air Force recruiting station full of beans and vinegar and presented myself, and the Air Force sergeant recruiter looked at me and he said, "Buzz off, Sonny. We don't need no peach-faced kids in the Air Force." And in desperation, to cut a long story short, I had to join the Army. And I ended up in my father's regiment, although he was not active in it because he only had one arm. He was back in Canada. Hasty Peas. And eventually I went overseas.
You went overseas very early in the war?
No, quite late, because I looked so young, as you can see from that picture, that every time the moment came for a draft for reinforcement officers to go overseas and join my regiment, which was already in England, some senior officer would look at me and say, "My God, we can't send him. There'll be letters to the editor, you know, about robbing the cradle." So they kept me home until 1942, before I finally made it.
And did you go straight to Italy?
No, I went straight to Greenock.
Oh.
Would you remember Greenock?
The Bay Hotel.
Ah, yes.
I'm from Greenock.
Greenock, sorry about that. I went to the south of England to a reinforcement camp, eventually joined my regiment.
I want you not to tell the stories.
I'm not. I'm trying to get to the good parts. The first part of the story...
I don't want you to tell the story about your first involvement with women.
You don't want me to tell that story?
No, I don't like it.
You don't like that story?
I think it's rude, vulgar.
Well, I have to alter...
I'm not fit at 25 past 9 in the morning.
I have to alter my first judgment. When I said that you're much better on television than radio, I'm not sure now.
My embarrassment didn't show on radio. My embarrassment shows on television, you fool.
All right, we'll skip that. My deflowerment.
Your deflowering. The deflowering of Farley Mowat. That'll be another book.
It was a very short book. Paragraph and a half, would you believe?
I believe a paragraph and a half. Very funny. Well, what's the punchline on it? I'll do anything for a Canuck.
Yes. There's nothing I wouldn't do for a Canuck.
Fair enough. You've told the story.
That's right.
Next.
Next, we went into battle. The first part of the book is the young man, the enthusiast, the idealist, the believer in causes, and then action begins. And action began for me on the shores of Sicily. I was part of the 1st Division and part of the 1st Brigade and part of the first 3 regiments to land on the invasion of Sicily. And we were into action, into war. But you know, war didn't yet have any reality about it. It was still an extension of the war games we'd been playing for years and years.
Death had clean, crisp, well-fed, and reasonably comfortable in the first few days.
And lots of excitement, you know, gunfire all over the bloody place, great shells, airplanes, big ships, all of the accoutrements of war. But death was not yet there, although people died. The regimental sergeant major landed beside me on the beach, and we crawled up the beach together. And when I made a dash across the sand, he remained. He was dead, shot through the neck. And there was no reality to this.
Like seeing it on television?
Like seeing it on television. So my war went on gradually into deeper and deeper encounter with the gross idiocy, the utter madness, the evil monolith of war.
Some of your descriptions of close-in action, combat, and fighting, I read them and I think, oh, I don't want to read about that again. But Should your book be read by youngsters for that, young people for that very reason?
If this book has any purpose whatsoever except to bail out my publisher, who's always claiming he's going to go bankrupt, it has the purpose of trying to alert, make aware the young men of today who will be the dead men of tomorrow if there's another war, of the total, absolute inutility of war.
Inutility.
It has no use.
Uselessness of war.
I like inutility.
No
Well, we
such
won't argue about semantics.
No,
The
I'll
total
get
uselessness
it.
of
Total
it.
uselessness
Yeah.
of war.
All right.
And yet you'll find people today saying, things are going down the tube. Oh, if it wasn't for the A-bomb, we could have a small war and everybody would be reinvigorated with enthusiasm, patriotism, no psychiatric illnesses. Dreadful attitude, is it not?
Well, listen, I don't know how good your sniffer is these days, but mine's pretty good, and I can smell war coming.
Oh, jeez.
It's on its way.
You watched the news last night?
Yeah.
Did you see the reports from Iran?
They just, you know, any major society, such as the American society of which we are a part, you know, the tail of the dog, when it begins to go into decay, when chaos begins to strike it, it begins to disintegrate, it has only one reaction, and the reaction is to burst out with rage, fury, and war. And we are going to get it.
Are we smart enough to avoid a war without the bomb and just a viewer kind of
It's
war?
impossible.
It's got to be
impossible,
the bomb.
sure. It's, you know, it's a logical exercise in stupidity to say that we can have limited wars. There are no such things.
Okay, I'll try another one, and it is a very touching book in many ways. You stop it, you chop the book off quite sharply, don't you, before the war is over? Why?
The book ends where I ended during the war. And when I say I ended, I wasn't killed. I wasn't even seriously wounded, just in very minor bits, externally. But I had been wounded internally, and it's another message in the book, another element of the book that is very important to me. An attempt to make people aware, people who have never been in war, that the really deep wounds that can never be removed are internal. And they are the wounds caused by the accumulative effect of fear. And this was what happened to me. In the final stages of this book, the worm that never dies, the worm of fear, which had started as an unseen little egg somewhere in my guts, had filled my whole body, and I was being destroyed by it. I was about to break. I was at the breaking point.
But then, of course, when you come back, you expressed your relief from that fear in your particular aggressiveness, in your comparatively safe targets on this side of the Atlantic. Am I not right?
No, when I came back from the war, that's a whole other story. I was so absolutely revolted by what had happened to me, and so terrified by what had happened to me.
Were you conscious of it?
Yes, I bloody well was. You asked me why the book ends where it does. It ends extraordinarily abruptly, just bang, eh? It ends at my breaking point. If I had been in action for 3 more days, I would have done one of 2 things. I would have absolutely had a total case of battle collapse, as they call it, which meant I would have just gone out of my mind, or I would have done as some of my friends did, and as one of them did in the last pages of this book, stand up and walk into the enemy fire, committing suicide, because he couldn't stand it anymore.
So you
That's why the book ends there.
You fought your way up Italy from Sicily to
Ortona. Now, what happened to me actually was that just after this book ends, my colonel could see that I was gone. I was finished. And so I was promoted to brigade headquarters, kicked upstairs to brigade, and I remained throughout the rest of the war as a brigade liaison officer. So I looked at the war from some distance.
as a captain.
Several times.
Up and down?
Yes, I'm the only man in the Canadian Army who ever made captain 4 times.
How could you get burst 4 times?
Well, I had an uncanny habit of saying the wrong thing to the right people. And I'd wake up in the morning and find I was a lieutenant again. And you know how we did it? We had cloth pips, say 3, these stars as cloth, and that was the captain's insignia. I'm so not saying this to you because you don't know, but a lot of the people out there may not know this now, the younger ones. And my batman, my officer servant, got so smart about this that he put the 3rd pip on dome fasteners. And in the morning he would wake me up and say, "What are we this morning, sir? Are we a captain still, or should I take off 2 of these pips?"
You're talking about having a little bit too much to drink and mouthing off at somebody.
No, I didn't even have to have too much to drink. No, I was bloody furious all the way through the war at the way the war was run. Everything about war is stupid.
What I used to say a number of years ago was that had Churchill known the truth about the army, I'm talking about the British army,
Yeah.
he'd have surrendered. Webster and Farley Mowat after the break.
Like any other group.
So therefore, to be a little, not reactionary, talking to an old soldier like you, do you sometimes feel, however, that the beneficial aspects of the discipline and the training is worthwhile having? Or is that just a phony baloney piece of
Well,
nonsense?
there's some truth in it. I see that our friend Jojo, the talking dog in Ottawa, is now saying that he would like to have, or intimating he would like to have young Canadians take military training.
Katamavik or something.
Yeah, something like that. I'm totally and absolutely opposed to military training.
Well,
What happens here is that in any primitive society, in man the way he used to be, there was a period at pubescence where all the young guys got together and they started to make things, this is my wife's phrase, they started to learn how to make things happen. That's a man's role, is how to make things happen. And they started to learn how to make things happen by going out on hunting expeditions together, where there was a great deal of risk, a great deal of camaraderie, and a great deal of discipline, because they had to work very closely together. In slightly more elaborate societies, such as the Indian societies of the West, they went out on raids. But these were not military raids. Sure, they'd take the odd scalp, very few, and they'd steal horses, which was okay. It was part of the group activity that's absolutely vital to young males. Now, the hellish thing is that people in our world have understood that this instinctive activity can be transposed into true military behavior. Now, once that happens, it becomes an abomination and a disaster.
You're talking about motorcycle gangs, neighborhood gangs,
Yep.
teenage hoodlums?
Yep.
A natural
It's
progression.
a natural instinct.
But you
The
don't want-
grouping of young men to prove themselves.
But you have such a pride in the regiment. You really do have such a pride in the regiment. It must break your heart to see what they did to the Canadian Armed Forces, removing the tradition
No, it doesn't break my heart, because the regiment I knew is long since gone.
because of that.
Yeah, well, no, but I'm not personally involved in it anymore. The emotions, the young man's emotions, living with a group of his fellows, that's in the past. Those men are all either like me, old or dead or dying. I'm out of that. But to do this to the young men of today is, I would think, the most atrocious single act.
All right, look,
we
an
can
idea.
accomplish.
I've got it. Your people are cold-blooded publicists. They're all the same. I don't really like these publishers people. And they've got the gall to put on a breakfast Saturday, November the 10th, the day before what I still call Armistice Day, not Remembrance Day, a $20 breakfast with Farley, right? $20 ticket, two can go, a couple, right? And where is it? The Hyatt Regency Ballroom, 9:30 on Saturday morning, breakfast with Farley.
Hey, listen, don't forget that $20 does include a copy of the book, an autographed copy. That makes it a little sweeter, because obviously I'm not worth $20 of anybody's time.
Oh, no.
But the book might be worth half of it, and if they get a decent breakfast, and I can't guarantee this, then that brings it up to about $19.85.
If there is a member or a former member of the Hasty Peas, good idea.
Brilliant.
Anybody who's a widow of a Hasty Pea or a Hasty Pea, please call on the open line, identify yourself. We'll check them. You'll check them for veracity.
Right.
And we'll give them this ticket.
Good enough.
Good idea.
That's a hell of a good idea.
That's a ticket for breakfast with Farley.
And Farley's wife, who's much prettier than I am.
Claire is here.
Yeah, yeah. She couldn't stay away because she knew I was coming to see you. She's been
looks
desperately in love with you for
so
years.
young compared to you.
Yeah.
You should really put Claire on.
Any woman who lives with me stays eternally young, Jack.
God, you are a pompous prig of a What is your... Mowat, you are, of course, Scotch origin. How many
Yes.
generations?
Would you believe 5? My great-great-uncle, great-great-grandfather, John Mowat, a sergeant in the Buffs, came to Kingston in 1921. And the Mowat stayed on.
1921.
From Caithness.
From Caithness. Oh, yes. Well, I'm sure he was a big, tall, cold, chilly man.
No, he was quite warm, but he was half Nordic, as all the Caithness people are.
You look as if you had a touch of the Irish in you.
Well, you know, as...
Some people say that about me, but I deny it on principle.
Yeah.
Grounds of principle. Okay, I'm going to get phone calls to Farley Mowat. And I want to hear from somebody who is connected at least with the Hasty Peas, preferably a former member of the regiment. Eh? Must be some Hasty Peas out here.
Oh, there has to be some, because they scattered over the face of the globe, as we all did after the war.
Webster and Mowat, and your telephone calls after this break.
Then
It's not a bad job, this, you know, on the telly.
Ah, I can see you love it, yeah.
Sit and chat to old buddies like you. It's really quite pleasant.
Done this way, it's fine.
Because you're much nicer than you used to be.
So are you. And by God, that's something.
I won't tell a story I remember. Yeah. Sir.
Hello.
Yes.
Oh, well, I was in the Regina Rifle Regiment, Second World War. Rejoined up in 1940.
But that's not a hasty pea.
I never went to the front line, so I was
I'm
a
looking
radio
for a hasty pea. Hold on a second, I'll come back to you.
Yeah.
Where's this from? Oh, 2-6. Small technical difficulty. Go ahead, please, from Victoria.
Hello.
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
How's Farley?
Farley's good.
Farley will speak for himself.
How are you?
Fine, Farley. I was in your regiment, the Hasty Peas, my boy.
Our regiment, friend.
Our regiment
Yeah.
is right. With
What's your name?
Kemp.
Kemp?
With Lieutenant Will Banks.
Yep.
You know him?
Yep.
Yeah. I got it out in up near Bagney Calavo.
Oh, yeah. In those bloody great muddy dikes.
Oh, you want to kid yourself?
Well, listen, you've, if you...
Just a minute, let me do this
Oh,
part.
all right, okay.
This requires some-
He wants to give it away.
What do you want to give?
I want to give you a $20 ticket for two to have breakfast with Farley tomorrow morning in Vancouver.
Okay, well, Jack.
At the Hyatt Regency at 9:30. Do you want to go?
Yes, definitely.
What's your name?
Jack Kemp.
K-E-
KMP.
K-E-M-P.
Yep.
You're not the chairman of the Social Credit Caucus, are you?
No way, shape, or form.
Oh, no, that's Jack Kemp.
Yeah.
Jack Kemp. Look, Jack, the tickets will be at the door at the Hyatt Regency tomorrow morning, 9:30.
Yeah.
Jack Kemp. Saturday morning.
Morning.
Are you bringing the old lady?
Yeah.
That's for two, okay. And you watch for him.
I will. Indeed, I will,
Okay,
Jack.
these publishers people to have a big notice. Jack Kemp's ticket is here.
There'll be a big sign in the foyer.
Saturday morning at the Hyatt Regency. What's the name of the
Jack,
ballroom?
Farley. All the best.
Okay,
Don't
see you
go
then.
yet. Don't go yet. Don't go yet.
Pardon?
When did you leave the regiment? After the war?
Yeah, I was invalided back in a cast for 9 months.
Would you take this guy's telephone number so I can make sure he can get here all right tomorrow morning? All right? Okay, don't go. And how are you keeping now?
Oh, not too bad, Jack.
What was your rank, Jack?
Buck private.
The best.
You want to believe it?
Yeah.
At least they couldn't demote you, could they?
No way, shape, or form.
No, you were luckier than I was. I started off that way, Jack, you know.
Yeah.
In fact, I was a batman for a while, and that was the best job I ever had in the Army. You know, you didn't have to fight.
You know, you're showing your age.
Yeah.
What
There's
is that?
nobody in this studio here, bar you and me and Fred,
Yeah.
who've crawled up and down Burma for years, being chased by, dare we say it,
No.
the Japanese.
Oh, dear heavens. You must only speak highly of our ex-enemies.
They're our best
Right.
friends.
I know they are.
They own the country.
They own BC anyway.
That's right.
Yeah.
And don't you be nasty about the Japanese.
I wouldn't think
I'll
of it.
have you up in front of the Human Rights Commission.
I wouldn't think of it. As we left the hotel this morning, a huge limousine flying flags
Here you
drove
go
up,
again in your
and I
racist-
thought, my God, it's the Governor General, or it's the Queen, or maybe it's Bennett, who knows?
Or Pierre
and,
Batten.
and it was a Japanese, I think, ambassador.
Don't worry about that. What was it? Asking something. What was it? Quick. Go on.
You've lost the track. That's
Oh,
a
yeah.
sign of old age.
You
Yeah.
said Batman.
Batman, yeah. And everybody, of course, thinks
Just
this
the
is
three of us know what the Batman is. They
Yeah.
think it's, what'd you call him in Batman?
No, they all think that I was the original prototype for the Batman comics when I say Batman. Batman was an officer's servant. Those were in the great days, you know, of the war, where officers had servants, when war was almost worthwhile because you had a servant. None of that now. It's all democratized.
I once had a Batman.
You were?
Just a minute. I once had a Batman who came to me with a very snarly look in his face and said, I used to be, sir, third footman to Lord so-and-so. I said, oh, that's jolly good show. Can you boil water and wash socks? He said, yes. He said, of course, really, I'm a gentleman's gentleman. And I said, no, you're my gentleman. He said, that's not quite the same. They don't have Batman anymore, I don't think.
I don't think, no.
Okay, Jack, don't forget now, you're committed, and I want your telephone number off the air.
Yeah, okay.
Because I think the publisher should fly him over in Pace.
Fly him where?
Fly him from Victoria to Vancouver.
Oh, he's over in Victoria. Oh, I think they should too.
Don't you?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Will you
yes.
arrange that?
I love spending my publisher's money. Like, well, after all, I make it. For them.
Oh, look, they're getting how much free time on this, the best morning television in Canada. They can afford 25, 50, be about $100 for plane fares over and back.
Absolutely.
Are you on?
I commit my.
If they don't pay it, will you pay it?
That's right. And if my
Take his phone number.
Did I say that?
Yes, you did. You're paying for this spot. Jack, you'll be recompensed at the breakfast for your expenses over and back.
But Jack, make sure you come third class. None of that first class stuff.
Oh, I want to go first class, same as the Hasty Feed, boy.
Thanks, Jack. Much obliged, Jack.
Okay.
Take a break. Thank you. Rick will do it, won't you, Rick?
Cheer up.
Need another microphone.
Get her in. Get her in.
Come on.
Who's
Come
coming
on,
in?
Claire.
Come on, love.
Moment.
15 seconds.
Sit there and look pretty.
10.
Get maximum penetration with that thing. Oh.
Oh, we're on again. Are we on? What is your name, madam?
You know my name, Jack. I've been here before.
I know, but you haven't been on camera with me before.
That's right, I haven't.
This is Farley's delightful wife,
Claire.
Claire Mowat.
The same wife he's had all these years.
I know, it's just unbelievable. And you look so young compared to him.
Well,
How's he to live with?
you really want to know? Have
My
you got
wife-
five
No. Let's not get into that.
Have you got 5 or 6 hours?
No,
you
I'll
wanna
take
hear?
it back because my wife is threatening to come on the program one morning. and-
There would be a show.
You see why I don't let her come on television programs?
I know.
Yeah.
She immediately distracts from you.
So if it hadn't been for you, you old curmudgeon, I would have kept her in the background where women belong.
Phone calls. Go ahead, please. Go ahead, please.
Hello, Mr. Webster?
Yes, madam.
And Mr. and Mrs. Mowat?
Yes.
Yes. And I like the ladies' approach to this, too. What I want to ask, now my husband's the Black Watch of Canada. May I ask a question?
Of course.
Yeah, okay. What he wants to know, he's going to the dinner tomorrow morning, or to the breakfast.
Saturday morning.
Saturday.
On Saturday?
Yeah.
Sorry, on Saturday. And he wants to know, could Mr. Mowat very kindly autograph a few more books that he has of his?
Well, I'd like to do that, and if it can be arranged with the people who are there, I'll be happy to do it.
Okay, because he's had every one of your books, and he certainly wants this one.
You've got to autograph these
Great
books.
success.
Oh, I will, but it's a question of reaching me. You know, I'm surrounded by these myriads of beautiful women, all clamoring for my attention.
You can tell your husband to take the books. Tell the husband to take the books, and I'll make sure that Farley autographs them.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Very much.
We'll put our mark on them.
Thank you very
bye-bye.
much. He's paying to go to see you.
I
and meet
know,
you.
right.
Go ahead, please.
Hello, Farley Mowat.
Yes?
I'm enjoying your book so much. I haven't read them all, but I really enjoyed the ones that I have read. And I'm wondering, a few years ago, when Jack Webster was still on the radio, he was interviewing you, and I seem to remember you telling about 2 books that I have tried all over the place to find, and I can't find them. One was called The Last Husky. Was that one of yours?
No, I think what's happening here is you're being confused by the fact that the Americans publish my books and sometimes use different titles. But The Last Husky was a short story, and you can find that in a book called The Snow Walker.
That is in the Snow Walker. I
Yeah.
have the Snow Walker, but I haven't finished reading it. It's in there?
Yes, I think the title was changed, but the story is in there.
Oh.
What was the other one?
And then the other one was called Son of a Bitch.
Oh, Son of a Bitch. Well, Son of a Bitch ran into a little difficulty. Not with the title. That's a great title, you've got to admit.
Right.
But I was writing about a dog.
Yeah, right.
And the dog became so infuriated at the choice of this title that he just damn well refused to cooperate. He just shut up and wouldn't say a bloody word, and there was nothing I could do.
Well, did you write the book or did you not write the book?
Well, I wasn't writing the book, the dog was. I was just acting as his ghostwriter.
You were going to write the book?
I was going to write. I
The
had it all
dog wouldn't
arranged.
cooperate?
He wouldn't cooperate. He didn't like the title.
Oh, so you never got that book written
That's
then?
right, yeah. Someday,
Okay.
maybe.
Okay, love, go ahead, please.
Yes, a whale for the killing, Mr. Mowat.
Uh-huh.
In that, did you alienate a lot of Newfoundlanders?
You bet I did.
The ones who you didn't alienate are still friends.
Yes, indeed. I don't think I alienated any Newfoundlanders of sufficient sensibility to realize what was happening to the whales. But I upset a lot of people because they thought that I was denigrating Newfoundland, and I was doing nothing of the sort. I have always loved Newfoundland and had a tremendous admiration for its people. But when you say something that reflects badly upon a community, the community will always sort of gather in and present a united front against you. That's normal, legitimate, and I accept it.
You wrote The Grey Seas Under, didn't you? Have you ever studied any towboating on the BC coast in any detail?
No, all I know about towboating on the BC coast is what I hear about from Bruno Chirusi.
You said a nasty word.
I did?
Well,
Oh,
at any
didn't know.
rate,
Sorry about that. I'll wash my mouth out.
Nice guy, but he's on another network.
I
don't cross-plug.
Oh, you're not going to be that narrow,
Mean, competitive,
miserly. Oh, terrible.
can't afford to lose, must win.
At any rate, there's a little bit of history in it. I've been sailing out here a bit on the towboats, and there's a fair bit of history in it. It's worth digging into sometime. I enjoy your books very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Still talk to whales?
I don't get much chance anymore because there are so few whales.
But anytime you bump into one, you have a
Oh,
chat
yes, when
with
I meet a whale, I always have a casual
That's
chat.
right,
and say, how are
casual
things
chat.
going? And they always tell me badly. And they are badly. You know, they just for a moment, just one little bit of seriousness. The whale population of the world is decreasing at a steadily increasing, accelerating rate. It's doing that.
The exponential graph is
Yep,
troublesome.
that's right.
Exponential.
Oh, that's a lovely word.
Yes, I saved them up for people like you.
How do you
want
spell
a break,
succinct?
Succinct. 7. Go ahead, please.
Hello, Farley.
Yeah.
I was with the RCDs, and we had a chat with this. I don't know whether you remember it or not. He transferred out of the Hasty Peas to Ordnance.
What's his name?
I'm trying to think of his name for the life of me. I can't do it.
Boy, this is a real problem.
He was a little short, heavy-set fellow, but a real jolly chap.
Yeah.
And but even though he was in Ordnance and with us all through the war, he was still a Hasty Pea. That's all he ever talked about was the Hasty
Okay.
Peas.
That's right. Anybody wants a hasty pea, always a hasty pea.
That's right. I'm into your book right now, The Regiment. I'm enjoying it very much.
Can't you remember his name?
I wish I could remember Harold's name, but it just
Did you say Harold's name?
the chap that
His first name was Harold.
Harold, yes.
You just got it.
What's his last name?
Well, that's the part I'm trying to get that, but it escapes
Can
me
you
right
not remember his name?
Isn't it amazing? You know, there are only about 7,000 men went through the ranks of the Hasty Peas, and somehow or other I've forgotten Harold's last name.
Can you afford the $20 for the breakfast? You going to breakfast?
I can't, unfortunately, or I would be there.
Pity.
Well, there might be some SRD rum.
You're talking me into it now.
Aha, I thought that would change your mind.
Much obliged. Go ahead, please.
Hello, how are you, Farley and Jack? I'm a former Down East girl, and I remember the night the Hastings and Prince Edward left for overseas.
Do you know?
I think it was the most memorable night of my life, really. It was, they went over, they arrived in Britain
What? I must ask you,
Night.
what happened? Oh, the regiment overseas. Yes. You're infecting me with your
A ribald approach to things.
ribald.
Ribald.
Carry on, ma'am.
And I remember it was an evening. They passed through Belleville, Ontario.
Of course, this was the center of the Hasty Pea country. The
And
Hasty
the-
Peas were what? We were a county regiment.
Yes.
And our other name, by the way, was plow jockeys.
Now that I don't recall, but I remember the night. The place was just. I can't express the feeling that was in that community. It was a night, probably November,
Yes.
and all the families, the children, everybody crying, and we never knew whether we were going to see those people ever again. And of course, we didn't see many of them again. But
Heavy casualties in the Hasty Peas?
Very.
Very.
No heavier than other infantry
Yeah.
regiments that were through the war, but
But-
heavy.
were the people we'd grown up with and played with and gone to school with and all these young people. And when I think back now, I mean 18 and 19
Yeah.
And it's unbelievable
You don't-
what war does to people.
You don't ever again want to experience that sort of thing, do you?
Never, never. I myself,
Let us pray that none of us ever have to.
and I think November the 11th is a date of everybody should know about.
Tis, ma'am. Go ahead. Oh, hold on, please. Got to take a break. One more session with Farley Mowat and, of course, his gracious and beautiful consort, Claire Mowat. Take it away. Claire Mowat, what's he like when he's writing a book, giving birth to a book? How does he behave?
Diligently. He works hard. Monastic sort of life.
Sits down early in the morning,
Yes, every day.
types his own stuff.
He types some, I type some. He has an old auntie who lives next door who also types. We all get involved in the act in one way or another.
Does he eat regularly during that?
Yes, yes, it's a very regimented life. Writing is hard work.
Tough.
Yeah, very solitary work too.
There's one thing you've told me that slipped out that I will not forget. That Farley Mowat's auntie and his wife also deserve credit. Do they get credit in the titles? Yeah.
No, in the dedication to this one, it's dedicated to my wife and to my mother, to Claire and to my mother Helen,
That's nice.
who had to endure the aftermath. Anybody who has to live with me has to have some credit for something.
For Claire and Helen and for all those others who endured the aftermath.
We didn't get any medals, but
No, he's quite a nice chap. I think he's improving as he gets older. I think you should
yes,
keep him.
a little.
I really think you should keep him.
Perhaps I will, now that you mention it.
She'll never find a better man than me. I mean, you're out of the running.
Are you suggesting that she has a limited appeal?
No, but the choice is limited.
Oh, I can.
Modest chap, isn't
Isn't he modest? Yes. Next call, please. Go ahead, please.
Hello, Mr. Webster.
Yes, sir.
How are you?
Good this morning.
Good. I would like to ask the young gentleman who wrote all the books a question.
The young gentleman, I love you. Carry on.
Why don't you write a book on Trudeau?
Oh, my heavens. Well, why don't I write a book about the fog in the North Atlantic or something like that?
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. Farley, were you on the Normandy?
On the which?
On the Normandy.
On the Normandy at Beachhead?
On the Normandy, the ship going overseas.
Yes, indeed.
Remember the incident about the booze?
Oh, yes.
Well, I was in the first event.
You were, eh? Well, you were ahead of me.
Okay.
You prepared the way with the English ladies.
Pardon?
You prepared the way with the English ladies.
Okay.
That's a sexist remark.
I know. I'm a sexist,
Go ahead, please. Hello.
Yeah, Farley.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering, you still live near Palgrave?
No, I live down Cape Breton now most of the time.
Oh. When you were living up in that area, do you remember a park called Cold Creek?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember the superintendent, a little short man by the name of George?
Yeah. That's you?
Is that you, George?
Yeah.
Hi,
That's
George.
How you doing, George?
I'm not bad, but I'm not George. I'm Mike, his son.
Oh, you.
Oh, well, that's close enough. At least you're a blood relation. He chased me out of there once for drinking illegally behind a bush.
Quite probably. Yeah, I thought you'd be interested. He moved down to Australia now.
Who, George did?
Yeah.
How's he like it?
He loves it down there.
Are you going too?
Well, I'm thinking about it.
Wouldn't blame me sometimes, much obliged. I bumped into a friend of yours the other night.
Who that?
Comrade Schreier.
Oh, Eddie. Mm-hmm.
Don't call him Eddie. They issued a circular saying that he had to
He's
be...
now Edward.
Edward.
And with the emphasis on the last syllable, Edward.
Edward.
Right.
The Honorable Edward Schreier.
But I can't really take it too seriously because, Claire and I have two dogs, one of whose name is Edward and the other whose name is Lily.
And you lived in their backyard in a mobile home for some considerable time. For what purpose, I never could determine.
Well, it was free accommodation.
Why were you living in these backyards?
I was exploring Manitoba. I had never really seen Manitoba, and Claire and I wanted to see it.
Was he the Premier at the time?
Yeah. He was a very accommodating man. He said, okay, you can park your ratty old caravan in my backyard. He said they wouldn't let it in any other trailer park, so put it here.
He's a nice guy.
He is. He's a good guy. That's one of the few good things that Trudeau did,
He didn't do it for good reasons, of course.
Oh, he had his own reasons, but it was a very good thing to do.
By happenstance, it was a good thing for the country, I think.
Yeah, I think it was a marvelous thing for the country.
Delightful chap. Had dinner with him last Saturday night. in Government House.
Ah, isn't it great?
Managed to behave sufficiently well that I was not ejected. How's that? I was tempted to do a Farley Mowat, but I thought no. Go ahead, please.
Hello,
Hi.
this is Dick Roberts.
Hi.
How are you?
Fine and dandy.
Great. I supported your regiment for 3 years in Italy,
Artillery?
right up PBCLI, yeah?
PPCLI?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, you didn't support us. You were fighting your own war. We were supporting each other.
Well, I was in the artillery.
Oh, I see. Mm-hmm. What,
At
medium or
that
field?
time. Right?
Were you medium or field?
Field.
Field, right.
Yeah. And I thought the regiment was a marvelous. I supported a lot of them, of course, all in the 1st Division.
Yeah. Oh, we love to hear those salvos of 25-pounders coming overhead.
And they were very, very good. I tell you, the Canadian boys, everybody said, even the Americans admired the Canadian infantry.
Yeah. Well, thanks for calling.
Thank you very much. Another old soldier. It's amazing. It's rather nice because we normally doesn't talk to old soldiers.
That's right. There are quite a few of us around still.
I said to somebody that I was in the Middle East during the war, and they said, "Oh, was there fighting in the Middle East?"
If there wasn't, there will be.
Mount Vernon, Washington. A Yankee caller. Go ahead to Farley Mowat.
Let's go.
Webster and Mr. Mowat.
Yeah.
That's the wrong line. I'm the wrong line. This is the call from Washington State, isn't it? Oh, hold on, please. I'm rattled this morning.
You are. Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Hello, good morning, Mr. Webster and Mr. Mowat and Mrs. Mowat. I wish Mr. Webster would come down here and shake things up about once a week.
The FBI would have me inside in a week.
Would you believe 30 minutes?
Well, they're mornings for us.
Are you an American?
Mr. Mowat, several years back, a biology instructor in Huntington Beach, California, recommended your book, Never Cry Wolf, to me.
Uh-huh.
And I got into it, and I said, oh, this is that Farley Mowat, because I had enjoyed some short stories, I think, that appeared in the Saturday Evening Post.
Oh, the dim, dark, distant past, eh?
Yes, and I found a book with a collection of them and enjoyed that. Loved Never Cry Wolf, made my report on it, and then some people made some snide remarks about it, partly being imagination, and I just wondered, did you actually make those trips?
Sure, if you want to find out whether that book is true or not, you don't ask people, you ask wolves. They're the only ones who can really answer. And listen, and while I've got you, I'm going to take a moment for a plug here that's going to make Jack furious. You know that the wolf is still being persecuted almost everywhere in North America. And here in British Columbia, they are now about to start a mass poisoning program, which, if they're successful with it, this is a good social credit activity, poison some of them naturally, I think. If they're successful, they will probably wipe out the last of the remaining wolves in British Columbia. Nice people, eh?
I think you're right in what you say, and I regret it too. We do have problems with coyotes and coyote crossed with dogs in the Fraser Valley here.
Yeah.
With sheep, and we do have problems with dogs. But I agree, mass poisoning of wolves, indiscriminate poisoning, is brutal and senseless.
We have some acreage just on the fringes of Mount Vernon, and we're plagued by coyotes crossed with dogs.
Okay, love, your call is fading. It's nice to know that so many people watch us on the cable in the United States.
Not even on the cable. Would pick you up direct.
He picks us up direct.
Yeah.
Oh, God bless you. Vote for Webster for president. He's got to be an improvement on your present candidates. Thanks, love. Where? Kamloops.
Mr. Mowat.
Yeah.
Yes. I was wondering if you're still living on the Morrison farm.
Oh, yes, indeed. Are you connected with the Morrisons?
Indeed, I am.
Are you a Morrison?
I'm a descendant of, but he was my great uncle, and I spent many, many happy years on that very isolated area.
Yeah, nobody could be anything but happy in that place. Just for the benefit of the rest of the people who might be watching, this is a 150-acre peninsula that juts into the North Atlantic on the east side, the foggy side of Nova Scotia, and it's the quietest, most gentle place, and the people are absolutely superb.
That was called the Brickery.
That's right.
Yes. Well, I spent many, many happy years.
Well, the house is in good shape, the place is in good shape, and it'll remain that way as long as we have it.
I didn't mean to cut it quite so quickly. Generally take them in the middle of a breath.
Right.
My thanks to you this morning. No Bird and No Bird sang. Breakfast with Farley. Don't forget the guy in Victoria. Your travel expenses will be reimbursed when you arrive at the breakfast. Correct?
By the television station.
By the publisher.
Oh, that's right.
By the publisher, and everybody who goes for the $20 gets a free copy of your book autograph.
Exactly.
Must be a cheap breakfast.
It is.
And then a special thanks to you, Claire.
Thanks, Jack. I love being here.
For bringing the old reprobate around once again. I'm sure that if we can both totter healthily down the inclining slope, that he'll be back before I've gone with 5 or 6 more books. Best of luck, Farley. Thank you.
Come and
Webster.
see me down east where the,
I
where the
will,
world
perhaps
is real.
next summer.
Okay.
Do I have to phone in advance, or can I just drive
well,
up?
you give me a call to make sure that I have your favorite tipple in.
Oh, a nice cup of tea.
Uh-huh.
Thanks to Farley Mowat after the break. Well, we have not been paying enough attention to the free-for-alls on this program from time to time, partly because I get much material from the programs. You don't only get the reflection of what people are saying or thinking about. I don't believe these lines are packed by people who can manage to get through when they want to, because they can't. You just dial and you take your chance. And we don't select by name. We really don't select at all, providing the call is legible and the person sounds as if they're going to be forthright. Was I going to use letters this morning? No, I wasn't. Go ahead, please.
Oh, good morning, Jack Webster.
Morning.
We've been watching your program with Farley Mowat with interest. We read his books, we enjoyed them. And I have an old book here. It's called Beasts of the Field, and it was published in 1900.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a series of photographs in there. It looks extremely, at least very much like Farley Mowat. And I was going to ask him if it was possibly his, it's
No. Who wrote the book?
Pardon?
Who wrote the book?
Well, the book is Beasts of the Field.
Who wrote it?
It was written by William J. Long. And
No, Farley's gone to make another public appearance somewhere.
yeah, published by Clark Company.
I shouldn't think so, but I'm glad you enjoyed it. I mean, he's a bouncy little man.
Yeah, it sure is.
Delightful wife.
Yes.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, bye.
Go ahead, please.
Morning, Mr. Webster. I'd
Morning,
like to say I
sir.
enjoyed your program very much this morning.
Good.
I was just brought it back to memory. My stepfather, he flew a Spitfire during the war. And everyone used to kid him about how safe he was up there, but he used to tell me that that a lot of times it was just terrifying because, well, you could do your thing going in, they could do all they wanted to you going out. And this was, he said he hopes to Christ that, pardon my language, that none of us ever see that again.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Jack.
Morning.
I'm in the American military. I'm a careerist. I'm up here on vacation.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry I missed Farley Mowat. I've read a couple of his books, and I'd like to know how I can go to that breakfast tomorrow.
Just go down to the Hyatt Regency today or tomorrow. But it's... no, it's Saturday morning.
Uh-huh.
Can you buy tickets today? Can anybody tell me?
Yeah, I can. That's what I want to know, if I can buy.
I'd go into the Hyatt Regency today and buy a ticket. Oh, tickets, here we are. Oh, you buy the tickets at the bookstores. Go to Woodward's book department and buy a ticket there.
Okay.
Yeah, there are lots of Woodwards around. Go there and buy one.
And also, I'd like to say one thing to you.
What's that?
I've been up here for about 2 weeks, and I can really think that you're... there's 3 things in Canada: the Minister of Justice, the Supreme Court, and Webster. And I wished we had it in the States.
That's very kind of you. Mind you, the Minister of Justice ain't that fond of me, and I don't think some of the Supreme Court is that fond of me. But I'm very fond of me, and I am never, ever wrong.
I think you ought to go syndicated.
No, I can't do that. Now, that's a good question. Why am I not on at night? Because I'm too old to work at night. I work in the morning for my convenience. I'm 61 going on 62. That's one reason. Syndicated. My expertise, if any.
Thank you very much, sir.
No, you're going to listen to this lecture. You like it, lump it. My expertise, if any, is confined to British Columbia. Dilute me on a national basis and I wouldn't be half as effective. But God bless you, and thank you very much for calling.
Yes, sir.
Bye. Love people who say sir to me. Go ahead, please.
Yes, Mr. Webster, enjoy your program very much.
Thank you.
This has nothing to do with Farley Mowat.
Good.
But I was wondering, Those two old gentlemen that were in the old age home last year.
Old John and his brother. We're going to give you an update on that. This was that terribly sad story.
I was wondering if the brother had ever been found.
He was found dead in a ditch at on Christmas Day last year.
Oh, that's dreadful.
Allowed to wander away, and he was a man of wealth who had been wrongly assessed and poorly treated. We closed the rest home.
Yes.
And we transferred the brother into a very nice place where he is still, I do believe, I must check on it, alive and well. The brother who wandered away, which whetted my interest, was found dead in a ditch.
Well, I'm very glad you're going to cover it again.
We'll do an update on old John.
Yes.
For sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye. Relatives came out from Sweden and sent me, as a matter of fact, a very nice little Christmas present because of our interest in the case. Go ahead, please. Where are you speaking from?
From Everett, Washington.
Oh, good morning, sir. This is my day for Hands Across the Border.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir. Do go ahead.
I'm watching you on the television.
You've got to turn down the sound or you'll go crazy.
I just did it.
Good.
Okay. Jack, my name is Alec Lennox.
Alec what?
Alec Lennox. Lennox.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I come from Scotland.
So I hear.
From Blantyre.
Uh-huh. You're related to David Livingston.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
My mom and dad just live just a wee bit down the road from David Livingston.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, I'm just going back there tonight. I'm leaving at 6:15 from Seattle, Pan Am, over to London. And a long time ago, I spoke to you on this type of thing when you were on the radio. I used to work at Ocala.
Aye.
All the big bad dealings at Ocala. And...
Go on.
Oh, I saw you touching your ear there.
No, just
from Everett. I really and truly think that you should maybe get a wee bit more over the border down here into the state of Washington.
There's no money in American viewers. We only count the Canadians.
Oh, really?
We don't sell.
I'm on cable TV.
I know, and I've probably got 50, 60,000 viewers down there, maybe more. Yeah. But they don't count commercially. I'm very glad to have them. Please, more and more and more. But they don't count commercially. And I, of course, seldom touch topics of real interest south of the border.
Oh, well, you know this,
Mind you, this is a much better program than any of the PM stuff you see on the Seattle stations.
Oh, I guarantee you. I'm just sitting here with my TV guide and my,
I see some of these Seattle magazine programs, and I hear my dukes about them.
But they do have a national one. That's Donahue, and he's not bad.
We outrate Donahue. I think it's 5-1.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, see, that I didn't realize.
And I'm not even as handsome or as young as he is.
Well, hey, but, and Jack...
But I'm smarter. I'm pulling your leg, Alec.
Well, I can see that because I'm watching you and your voice and your mouth is moving different.
I'm 7 seconds behind you.
Oh, then
That's in case you swear I can kill it. Nobody's offended.
Oh, is that right? Oh,
anyway, have a good trip. I tell you what, go and see in Blantyre the Murdochs. There's a family of Murdochs in Blantyre. What was Jan's last name? And the McCallums. My brother is married to John McCallum, who is a big bestseller on the trilogy bestseller on the go. The McCallums are well known in Blantyre, and the Murdochs are well known in Blantyre. Oh. And my wife used to have a relative at Muirkirk that isn't that far away, who had a hotel at Muirkirk, and he ate himself to death.
Oh, is that right?
He did. He was a terrible man.
And Jack, next Wednesday night, I'm going to go and see the Celtic and Aberdeen playing in the Scottish Cup, and then the following week, I'm going to see Rangers and Aberdeen.
Well, I express no preference. I hope the Whitecaps win. Thanks very much. Have a good trip. Take a break. Go ahead, please.
Mr. Webster.
Yes, sir.
You talked about oil the other day on your program, and I just wanted to give you a little experience I've had over the last 25 years with oil.
Right, please do.
They come and check your furnace, clean it out, set it up, and when they leave it, they shut the air off, most of the air off, so that you get a straight shot of oil instead of oxygen and oil.
You mean the dealers are trying to make you burn more oil? Eh?
Well, it's the man that does the repairing.
You mean they do it deliberately?
Pardon?
They do it deliberately?
Well, I've checked my furnace every time they've done it since in the last 25 years, and they've always shut the air off.
Well, I don't mess about with my furnace at all because I'm afraid I'm going to blow myself up.
Well, what they do, they shut that off. It makes your furnace dirty. You use more oil, keeps them in business, keeps the chimney sweep in business, and it costs you a lot of extra money.
Thanks for your sad experience. Go ahead, please.
Jack, I didn't get his reason for being against military training.
He felt it develops the worst animalistic instincts and brings you back to being a primitive.
I don't agree with that. I was in the Army for about 5 years, and I think it's very good. I've got his book, The Regiment, and it's a magnificent book.
Yeah, I think there were some good aspects to Army life.
But I
can't think of them offhand, but there were, I suppose.
I think there should. I think compulsory military training at a certain age would be a very good thing.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead, please.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Webster.
Morning, ma'am.
I was trying to get through when you had Mr. Sherrill on your program.
Robbie Baby.
Beg your pardon?
The great PR man from Oklahoma.
Yes, right. And he kept talking about fair insurance. Well, I was wondering if he was including fair insurance for motorcycles. No, I don't know if people realize, but when you own a motorcycle, you have to pay about $250 for PLPD.
Used to be a lot more than that.
Yeah, and then you have to apply to Victoria to get collision and theft, which costs 1% of the value of the bike, which means if you own a $7,000 bike, for collision and theft alone, you have to pay $700.
Maybe fair. Maybe it's correct that fair doesn't apply to motorbikes because motorcycle accidents cause the greatest havoc to humans and machines.
True, but usually it's the car drivers that cause the accident.
No sympathy for anybody on a motorbike on a wet road. I think it's a dangerous weapon to have on a city street, no matter how good the driver is. I watched a guy getting skidded off his bike the other day. I think it was a taxi cab, but nobody was really to blame. A nervous jerk of the front wheel, a slip of the back wheel, and you're underneath the bus.
Yeah, but I still don't feel that you should be penalized about, having to pay about $900 insurance.
Well, I'll say this much, that if fair does not apply to motorcycles, that destroys the total concept.
Okay, that's what I wanted to get through to
Good.
ask Mr.
I've got it. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Jack.
Morning.
Jack, you remember Mere Hill Barracks?
Yes?
Well, that's where I had my training, but the reason why I'm phoning, I don't know whether you know, but you know who R.D. Lang is?
Who?
L-A-I-N-G. R.G. Lang.
Oh, yeah, R.G. Lang is supposed to be one of the world's leading psychiatrists. He comes from Glasgow. I do not like his work, I do not like his technique, and there's not much I like about the guy at all.
Well, there's a program on CBUT tonight, the last program...
Thank you very much, sir. What the devil do you think I am? All the tact and diplomacy of a steamroller, that guy, isn't he? Never ceases to amaze me. Go ahead, please. Oh, words to that effect.
Hello, Jack?
Yes, yes.
I only get to watch your program about 2 days a week because I'm working the rest of the time.
Pity.
Consequently, I miss some of them. I was just wondering, since Premier Bennett came back from the Orient, have you had him on your program?
No.
Oh, do you plan to shortly?
Yes.
I have some pointed questions to ask.
Will he come? I don't know.
Well, okay, I'll look forward to it.
Thank you. Yes, yes.
Mr. Webster, I enjoyed your program very much this morning.
Mm-hmm.
And you said it was a free-for-all. About Elle McCain refusing to quit her job. You know, it's most amazing. Maybe I'm cynical, but I think they're afraid to fire her. I think she knows a lot more than what she said so far.
Well, if she was acting under instructions of Kelly or somebody else,
yeah,
they've got no grounds to fire her for misconduct.
I agree with that.
And
I
they'll
agree
have
with
to
that, but that's why she's really not being fired, I think, is because she knows a lot more.
It looks like they're going to give her the minor executive treatment. First, take away your carpet. Second, take away your telephone.
Yeah.
Thirdly, nobody speak to you, and then finally you walk out.
Oh, I don't think they're going to let her go because I think she can name names that she hasn't named so far.
I'd like to see a lawsuit about it. I'm interested. Thank you, ma'am. I'll be back after the break. We contribute to the news. We contribute much to the news. Christmas Eve.
Here?
Short list, no. Are you listening over there, Bob? Swing a camera around quick to Naomi, will you? Quick to Naomi. Can you do that? Can somebody put Naomi on? Naomi, look up at the camera. Stay where you are. Stay where you are. Look at the camera and smile. Old friend and colleague of mine from the Vancouver Sun, now the North Shore Citizen. Tomorrow, quickly.
Tomorrow, Lloyd Axworthy, Liberal MP from Winnipeg.
Peter Foster.
Blue-eyed
and
chic
Stan.
author.
And Stan.
Can.
Cam. 9 a.m. precisely.